Nelson attacking. Oh, we just got the full Nelson on a major rack attack.
Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Roll Tide Rundown. Today we're going to be looking at the March Madness projections that just recently came out and how all that kind of plays into the rest of our season and where we're going to probably end up landing come March. So there's a few points that I want to talk about this episode as far as all of this breaking down and kind of where Alabama sits within all of this. One of the things I want to look at is the current bracket projections and seeding, and kind of who we're matched up against, what area we're playing in, things of that nature. Another thing that I want to look at is our remaining strength of schedule and how that could play into our seeding moving forward. I also want to look at offensive and defensive ratings and kind of how that all ties into March Madness and can help you predict who's going to end up where when it's all said and done. I want to look at offensive and defensive ratings and kind of how you can use that to predict, Final Four, championship, things of that nature. And also I want to look into our returning players from last year's Final Four run and how that can have a positive impact on this year's run and our chances within March. So let's get into that. So first things first, when breaking all this down, I feel like we kind of have to look at the region and all the other teams projected to be there along with their seeding and where all that kind of stands. So currently Alabama is projected to be a number 1 overall seed in the Midwest region in Indianapolis. There's also other really good teams within this region, and kind of looking at how all that is going to play out becomes pretty interesting. So some of the other notable teams: West Virginia, who's playing well right now. Memphis, who is on and off, but playing pretty well. Bradley, a team that we met earlier in the season in Birmingham, Illinois. We ended up getting the win against them. They're projected to be a number 4 seed. And they're also projected to be playing another team from Alabama, Samford, which in my opinion, I think they should have won. And they almost did win against Kansas in the first round last season in the tournament. And they are a really good basketball team. Also, Ole Miss, who beat us at home, is projected to be in this region with the number 6 seed. And then for the number 11 seed, Ohio State or North Carolina are projected to be there. North Carolina, we beat them earlier this season, and then last season, we lost to Ohio State in a holiday tournament. So yeah, those are some of the notable teams that I'm seeing that I think are going to be pretty good and have a good chance to make a run in the tournament as well within our region. But I like our odds within this region. There definitely seems to be some regions, that are tougher. There's definitely some really good teams in each region, obviously. And I do like our odds with the teams that are set up in this region and the way that they are set up right now. So speaking about projections and kind of where everybody kind of sits right now with our record and strength of schedule, you kind of also have to look at the remaining strength of schedule and the games that each team has coming up. So looking into that a little bit, Alabama, no surprise really, Alabama has the number 1 remaining strength of schedule. We have the toughest schedule heading forward and for the rest of the season. With the SEC being as tough as it has been this season, it's really no surprise that Alabama has that strength of schedule, considering we play Auburn twice, and Auburn's a really good basketball team. But also, when you look at this list, the first 9 teams on this list are all SEC schools, which really just shows how good the SEC is playing and how great the conference is this year. Also, looking into it a little bit more, that kind of opens up the opportunity for other teams to steal more wins. With a tough schedule, it's kind of hard to bounce back as easily. There aren't those gimme wins like there are in some conferences this season. But I also think that gives us more of an opportunity to bounce back from a loss and get a big win next game up. You don't have to wait a few games to have that opportunity to get a big, meaningful win. It's right there in front of you each and every game. So I think that's going to help out not only Alabama, but a lot of the SEC schools kind of maintain where they're at within the bracket and kind of maintain that momentum moving into March. I think that's really going to be helpful for not only Alabama, but all the teams in the SEC this season. So now I want to take a look at this offensive and defensive rating chart that I'm going to pull up for everyone. This is a little bit older of a chart. It's from, earlier in the season, but I don't think things have changed much for a lot of these teams from this point as far as their offensive and defensive ratings to this point in the season. So kind of looking at it, taking what we know from current day and applying it to this chart can kind of help us figure out where everybody sits offensive and defensively and kind of how that's going to affect the tournament. So Alabama is seen in the second tier of this chart, in the yellow tier, which is Final Four projected teams, teams that have the possibility of making a Final Four run, which I don't think is really surprising seeing some of the other teams on here like Texas Tech, Mississippi State, Marquette, Oregon, which beat us earlier in the season, Kansas, Texas A&M. Some of those teams, definitely have a chance to make a Final Four run, and I think there's some of those teams that are really good coming into the second half of the season. So just a little statistic that goes along with this chart. Prior to 2023, 98% of Final Four teams since 2002 were top 50 in both offensive and defensive efficiency pre-tournament. So looking into that, that kind of helps figure out where we are as far as what that yellow tier, that Final Four territory actually means as far as our possibilities going into the tournament. I think Bama is one of those teams. We've seen it before, and I do think we'll see it again. We have a weakness throughout the season. For example, last year it was our defense. We weren't a great defensive team throughout the entire regular season. We had our days that we were really good, and we needed that every single game. But then we would always slack back off. And so looking at that, I kind of agreed this season we aren't the greatest defensive team, but some of our other weaknesses, such as turnovers and fouls and our off-night shooting, sometimes have also played into our season this far, and I think we've been able to overcome them, but it is something that we need to improve on. With that being said, though, Alabama seems to be one of the teams that, for some reason, I don't really know why, but whatever their issue is during the regular season, it seems to be fixed immediately come tournament time. Last season, within our Final Four run, we really buckled down, and our defensive abilities, our defensive rating shot through the roof. I mean, we started playing like a top defensive team, come March, and I think that's kind of going to be the case this season as well. So even though we're projected Final Four, and that's great, I think our defensive rating doesn't really mean as much as it could to some of these other teams, because for some reason Alabama seems to figure it out come March and really improve our weaknesses. Projected Final Four is awesome and great, and that's where I want to be. But I would love to be in that green tier as far as championship contenders. And I think come March we'll be playing that way. I think we'll figure it out as we do, it seems, every single March under Nate Oates. So speaking of these different territories, and me just mentioning the green territory, the championship contender territory, here's another little graphic of all the teams within the KenPom database that have a chance at being your national champion this year. So every champion in the KenPom database since 2004 has been top 57 in offensive and top 37 in defensive efficiency. So looking at that, some of the notable teams, Auburn, obviously, Duke, obviously, Iowa State, who just dropped a game, but they're still playing really well. Houston, who seemed to have picked it up late, playing really good in conference play. Mississippi State, which Alabama has a game against tonight. Creighton, Alabama beat them earlier in the year. Tennessee, Florida, Ole Miss, who beat Alabama at home. Marquette. A lot of good teams are in this category of top 57 and top 37 in offensive and defensive efficiency. Tying back to my point earlier, though, Alabama, we aren't top 37 in defensive efficiency. So with that being said, like I was saying earlier, Alabama seems to figure it out and improve on these things come March. For some reason, there's something in the air in March in Tuscaloosa, and we seem to figure it out and improve on those things every time. So along with a few other teams, Alabama is one of those teams I'm not willing to completely mark out of this list of teams that could possibly be your national championship come April. But that's just something to note as far as the other teams outside of Alabama within this bracket that really have a shot, and some of the statistics that go along with it, and help come to those conclusions. So now another thing that I want to talk about. A lot of people, I don't feel like, put as much of an emphasis on this as I do. And I do think it is a big deal, and I think it's pretty important to look at, especially when filling out your bracket and thinking about all of that kind of stuff. One of the factors that I think should go into your selections is experience playing in the tournament. Not necessarily just Final Four runs, but for every team, I think experience playing in the tournament between players and coaches is very important to look at. So looking into that, for Alabama in particular, their returning roster, I think we have a good chance with the players that we have returning. So we have Mark Sears, obviously incredible point guard, one of the best Alabama's ever had. Grant Nelson played amazing in the tournament, really big game against UConn, obviously the huge dunk. And then Mohamed Diabate, who broke out in the March Madness tournament last year and really helped us get to the Final Four. He seemed to have carried that over, as I've said before. He seemed to have carried that play style and that confidence over into this season, and he's played that way all year. Jaron Stevenson, who played pretty good for us in the tournament, he's starting to pick it up, find his shot, and fill into our offense. He's played really tough and amazing basketball so far this year for us. Matt Shanowski, walk-on, he has that experience in the tournament and seeing what that's like. I think that's going to help culture-wise on the bench and in practices. He's there every day to see what goes into it, and he's a big part of our team as well. Tying into that same category of player as just that culture on the bench and that knowledge of what it's like to be in a tournament. Latrell Wrightsell Jr., obviously, injured against Oregon, out for the season. But I think that knowledge and that attitude of knowing what it takes and being there for it is going to be beneficial to Alabama. I think having him on the sideline and being able to coach through and be a leader for the rest of the players on the team is going to be a big factor for us. And I think even if he's not on the court, I think having Latrell Wrightsell there is gonna make an impact come tournament time. I think he's gonna be huge for us as far as just the freshman like LeBaron. I think he's gonna be able to be a huge mentor for him and kind of help him through what it's like to play in March and what's needed out of you individually and as a team to get the best results and win games come March. So in the same vein of our returning players from last year's run, another thing that I want to mention is Oates' experience going to the Final Four and kind of coaching through that, playing different play styles, different teams from different conferences each day, and kind of meshing and being able to mold to whatever play style we need to or whatever roster, whatever lineup we need to for each and every game. Looking at that with Oates and this roster, I think it's going to be very beneficial to have a coach like Oates. He's quick on his feet with making adjustments. As we saw with the LSU game, he's going to play the players who are putting out the most, production and giving us the numbers we need to win. And I think that's going to carry over into March. I think that's going to be really, really helpful for us. Also, looking at our roster, I think we have the depth and we play at the speed that we need to be able to make a run. I think we have one of the deepest rosters in college basketball this season. We're playing an incredible amount of guys, and it's really hard to find minutes for each of those guys. But, with the minutes that they're getting experience within SEC ball, and I think that's also going to help us, especially with our freshmen. Come tournament time, and that depth is really going to help, as far as late game situations, having multiple options to go to for matchups and kind of seeing how each of them play out. And we kind of saw that last season with some of the things that we did. Diabate would go in, have a good spurt of efficiency and production for us, and then he would gain more minutes and begin to add more to the team and to the roster. And I think that's kind of how it's going to be this March as well. Just fitting those pieces together and having more pieces to choose from is going to be huge for Bama, and I think that's going to help us tremendously come March. So yeah, looking at all this information and kind of breaking it down and looking at it on a deeper level, kind of helps us get an idea of where Alabama sits as far as the tournament coming up in March and how all that's going to possibly play out. I think Alabama has a really good chance of making a deep run. I think we have all the pieces. Some of the statistics may be a little bit lower than we would like or what's needed to be projected for a good run, but at the end of the day, it's basketball and it's completely unpredictable. So I think we have a really good chance. Like I was saying, Alabama tends to, pick it up come March and really fix a lot of those issues and play to their best ability. And I think we have all the tools and all the pieces that we need to make a deep run. Roll Tide.